Always worth it just for that music alone. What's going on, everybody? It is good to see you all. I hope everyone is doing well and is looking forward to a very special session today of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. I'm sorry that we're starting a little bit later than intended. We had some player scheduling situations that we had to deal with, and so we've actually decided to change things around a little bit. We will talk about that in just a minute in terms of tonight's session. Before we get there, a couple of quick reminders about ways to support us on the channel. If you haven't done so already, please follow us here on the channel. Please support us by checking out and subscribing to my YouTube channel with !ArvTube. And if you're over on my YouTube channel, watching as we speak live, welcome, and please consider heading over to our Twitch channel as well. You can also speak on the YouTube chat, and I will make sure to respond over there as I see it. But otherwise, head over to our Twitch channel. That would be lovely. If you have not done so already, please consider as well supporting us by checking out my Twitter and Blue Sky, which is !ArvTweets and !ArvSky. Our Discord channel is !ArvCord, where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. And website for all this is arvaneleron.com. Financially, !Arv Shop is the merchandise area where you can get swag for yourself, including soon-to-be Expedition from the Mysterious Peak swag. And you can also get stuff relating to some of our other campaigns and support the channel at the same time. The Patreon is !ArvTrayon. That's really the financial backbone of the channel. And not only does it support the channel, but it also will get you individually some cool stuff too, in terms of stuff that you can get by supporting us and inspirations to help the players, which is always a good thing, so please consider supporting us there. If you haven't already done so, please as well consider subscribing to the channel, where you can get custom sub badges and emotes and also inspirations to help our players too. On the publishing side, Icarus, my graphic novel from Athos Arts. Library is my Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library. That is my 5e adventure and sourcebook from Alligator Alley Entertainment, which is the sponsor and designer of this campaign we're playing, Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. I will also be doing that Return from the Mysterious Peaks for my live players at the Klein on January 26th. So next month, January 26th. Very excited for that, and I'll be talking more about that Klein event as we get a little bit closer to it. So all of that through Alligator Alley Entertainment. Greyshade, last of all, which is my Grey Assassin trilogy. Greyshade, which is an award-winning book. Renegade, which came out a couple of months ago, has been well received too. You can get both of those books at that Greyshade link. You can also get the audiobook of Greyshade from our very own Trent Sparks, and you can pre-order the tabletop role-playing game of Greyshade done by Brandon O'Brien and by Alligator Alley Entertainment again, that is going to be coming out soon. You can pre-order that, and you can pre-order the last book in the series of the Grey Assassin trilogy called Heretic, which I'm working on as we speak, and which will be out next year. So I am making good progress on that, and you can pre-order that there. Last but certainly not least, BLM, Black Lives Matter. Very important to affirm and assert the significance and importance of Black lives. Help Now, which is the World Health Organization page on suicide prevention. Very important to reach out to others when you need help and to reach out to others when they need help as well. And Ukraine, Ukraine, to help the people of Ukraine as they fight back against an illegal and illegitimate war with bravery and courage, and send the message that we will do so for others in the future in a similar situation. Now, with all that said, without any further ado, since we are getting started a little bit later, I want to get right into things. I just want to mention very quickly that tomorrow, Sunday, is going to be a special session, which I believe is at 7 p.m. Eastern, although maybe Triffid could confirm, with the Strange Friends, who have done a lot of things with Speculate. The Strange Friends will be back with a special one-shot event to celebrate Porter's Day, and that'll be happening tomorrow here on the channel, so you'll definitely want to make sure you tune in for that. And then next Tuesday, we have we have Gamebook illustration streams, we have D&D with GOG Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and we have the annual Our Vocalist Christmas Carol reading, which is going to be amazing. So you'll definitely want to check that out. Make sure you keep that aware of that very soon. Now, with all that said, I'm going to unmute myself and apologize to anyone that I may have interrupted because I couldn't hear them. I'm sorry. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last but certainly not least, I'm going to head over to reveal to you 3 of the 4 of us are here. Well, 3 of the 4 of the players. I am a person that that counts. But 3 of the 4 players are here as well. And so we're doing things a little bit differently. We had a bit of a sort of scheduling situation with some of the players that came up fairly last minute. And so since that is the case, we decided that rather than start and go like super, super late and have to do like a rush session and all that kind of stuff, we thought it might be fun to actually run through a little bit about what the party has been doing in terms of the players leveling up, the characters leveling up to level 4. And then the next session, we will be right back into the story. Of course, the characters are in the city of Celis, the great underground city of Celis. And they have got some issues to deal with, including tracking down a number of people that have been disappearing from Celis. If they want the support of Celis's leaders in their own problems, then they're going to need to help Celis first. You know how that works. So, but we'll be talking more about that with our next session. So, Johnny is not with us, may or may not join us later on tonight, but is not with us now. Normally plays Titus Littlefoot but he is, of course, known as Video Store Cowboy on Twitch. So you should follow him, and we will hopefully see Johnny, as I say, if not today, then we will see him at our next session. I will move right on, therefore, to Toy and Kristen Finley, who is with us despite tornadoes attempting to sweep her away off of the land, but has managed to avoid that apparently so far. So no tornadoes have swept you away. It's good to see you, Toy. I'm very glad you were not swept away by tornadoes.
Yeah, I am as well.
And how are you? How are you doing otherwise? And then who are you playing as we talk about our characters tonight?
Well, I'm good. Otherwise, is a little frazzling day because we also had to wrestle 2 dogs down into the basement who really haven't had to do that before. And as I said before, one of the dogs has anxiety and is a half pity, a 50-pound half pity who is nothing but pure gristle. So it was actually more an event getting her back up the stairs and out of the basement. But you asked me another question. What was it?
Oh, just about the player, who you're playing today, as we're going to be talking about our characters.
Oh, yes. It would be Nalik, also known as Nals Darkly, who is a bard and likes poking around in people's dreams.
Indeed, there'll be more of that coming up over the course of the campaign. Always a pleasure to have Toya with us. It is a great pleasure to welcome back from Europe. To welcome back Cat Rambo is with us with one new arrival. You can see having the head petted as we speak. There we go. It's a really gorgeous cat too, by the way. I love the eyes and everything. Oh, really cool. But it's good to see you, Cat. I know you don't want to go into a big thing about it, but just briefly. How was Spain? How was everything there? How was the castle? Did you have fun storming the castle?
It was freaking amazing. As you may or may not know, Bob, and everyone else, it was a 10th century castle, and we had 12 students and 4 instructors: Ann Leckie, Sarah Pinsker, Tobias Bickel, and myself. And everybody pitched in. We had most nights were vegetarian, or at least there was always a vegetarian option. And for my birthday, they had a cake, and everybody sang. One of the students bought a guitar, and so we did a lot of sitting around singing. And we had fresh croissants delivered to the castle every few days,
Wow.
which was amazing.
Castle croissants.
And there was because it was a very hard walk up to it. Like you had to bring your groceries and luggage and stuff via this sort of lift thing. It's a little primitive, but worked fine. And we had amazing food and got a lot of writing done. And it was never a sunset or sunrise that was not frickin' beautiful. So
Wow.
lots of fun, really wonderful.
So presumably this is something you're gonna, if you can, do again in future years, theoretically.
Well, next year we are planning a US location, so we are gonna do it again because we managed to not make this a financial disaster the first time. We actually did okay. So next time's going to be in the US, and we're already thinking about exciting instructors. And yeah, I'm not at liberty to disclose the location, but it will be a nice sunny one because it will be in November again. And this is my way of making sure I spend November somewhere warm and sunny.
That
That's cool.
sounds awesome. I'm glad that it was so successful. I'm sure it was amazing for the students too. Kat, who are you playing in the session today that we're going to be discussing?
I am playing Fob, a lizard folk rogue with a great many knives.
Yeah, one knows how to use them, for sure. I am excited to talk more about FOB. But first, I want to say hi to Zach Clay, who is with us and is here in Fine Fettle and is preparing for the epic 6-person Our Vocalist Christmas Carol voiceover extravaganza coming up on Tuesday. Zach, one of the 4
Yeah, buddy.
regulars, plus the two of our veterans, 2 of our alumni, I guess, Tren and Little Red Dot will both be there. So it's going to be an amazing session and all that. Zach, how have you been? How's life in the universe with you and all that stuff? And who are you playing in our character discussion chat tonight?
Life in the universe is good. I have been working with my D&D students that are at my local alma mater with the D&D club there, and then otherwise on a bit of a holiday break from other pro DMing stuff other than a regular group of clients that I have. I'm gearing up for more work in the new year in San Francisco with pro DMing that I have lined up, and otherwise playing lots of Baldur's Gate 3, which continues to get my D&D fix, and homebrewing a campaign that I'll be running for my friends that I haven't run. We haven't played games together in a long time, and so they were the first like formative group that I played D&D with, so that'll be fun.
And you streamed with them on Twitch, right? At some point, like a
Yeah,
couple of their
very
sessions?
briefly.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in 2018-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, just my local high school and college buds. And we've played many games. I did a 42 session full Vampire the Masquerade campaign that was DM'd by my great friend Elijah, who's an amazing dungeon master. Elijah actually, his foray into pro DMing was with me in San Francisco with some of the gigs that we got. So that being able to do that with a local friend that we both started DMing in high school was very
Nice.
fun. But anyway, so yeah, you know, end of the year holiday stuff, winding down, getting ready to wind back up. And tonight I will be playing / discussing my character, Dr. Jaraxxus, who is a Dendus Cybermancer. What does that mean? You'll find out.
Yeah, because there's been quite a bit from these folks as we've gone through. Well, all right, so yeah, as we say, chat, we're going to do things a little bit differently now. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about how each of the players have tried to level their characters, and to the extent that we can, I guess, players, I want to ask if, while we're talking about this, obviously, if there are sort of like story reveals that you're waiting on for a couple levels, don't feel free to not bring those up. But if there's something that you're like, I had this vision and I'm sort of pursuing this sort of, developed character over time, or if there's stuff that you've discovered through play that you're like, I kind of decided to go a little bit of a different direction because of how things worked out in the campaign, I'd love to know that also. And I won't go around. I'll ask whoever wants to go first. If someone wants to talk a little bit about their character sort of development journey, I guess. Is there anyone in particular who wants to talk about if this has been on their mind in particular, about how to create or level or build their character?
Yeah, I'll start. So originally, I guess part of the ideation of this discussion too is the fact that this campaign started with us making 2 characters each. And so
Yep.
Originally, I'll try to swing into Dr. Jaraxxus quickly here, but I knew that I wanted to try this character, Beauty, who was at the start of the campaign for a while, and then I wasn't too sure about the other character, and I think actually I had a up until impending right before we were going to start the session, I had another orc druid or something that I was going to play, but I don't even remember what they were. It was just a random idea. The sci-fi character, I think, I don't really know where the idea of being a celebrity science influencer came from. I don't know, because I I would say that it was inspired by Espergenesis, because in Espergenesis there actually is a celebrity background. You know, in D&D you can make your background like acolyte, soldier, sage, outlander, and in Espergenesis one of them is like, you know, space bounty hunter. But there's also celebrity is literally one.
Mm-hmm.
But I
I put the
remember.
Dendis. So sorry to interrupt. I just want to say, chat, that I put a picture of the Dendis up in the top left window, so you can look as we're
Perfect.
talking about Jiraxis. I'll do that for everybody.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I remember seeing the celebrity background in the book and being like, "Oh, that would be perfect for this celebrity idea that I already have." So it wasn't me seeing that and be like, "Oh, what if I should make a celebrity?" I don't know. I think I was just looking at the different races that come in the Espergenesis book that were sort of, you know, created up by Alligator Alley, and what I wanted to try. And then I guess it's the year of the warlock for me, because Beauty, who was my other character for this campaign, was a warlock. The Cybermancer in Espergenesis is a warlock, like synonym essentially to D&D. And even in the aforementioned Baldur's Gate, the character I'm playing right now is a warlock. Warlock's just a great design and class, I think. And so it was more just the idea of me taking what is a Dendis, this sort of, you know, unique alien race that have tentacles that can communicate telepathically, and the various aspects there of their culture, and then also what it means to be a cybermancer. And then I think the last thing I'll say is the sort of direction with Dr. Jiraxis is, having come from our previous campaign where I played a character that was really combat oriented, and you know, I definitely still role played with Kaz. Took me a second
Cosmeritis, yeah. I was
yeah,
like,
Cosmeritis. But Kaz was, you know, I was as a Bellare, which is basically a star being in a mech suit. I was kind of playing into the idea of being, you know, not really understanding what it meant to be a humanoid. And so Kaz was always just a bit aloof when it came to that kind of stuff, and didn't have much in the way of charisma either. And so now with Jiraxis, one of Jiraxis's highest stats is all the intellectual stats, and his dexterity is terrible, which is kind of, as with Kat's characters, you know, the opposite of what I did last time. And I think that's really what interested me with Jiraxis, is just sort of playing something new and sort of opposite of what I already did in a 70 plus session campaign.
yeah.
Already in this space. And so I'm really enjoying exploring that aspect of a more charismatic character, although intelligence is actually his highest stat. And I'm curious to see where it goes. I mean, the one other thing I'll say is that, you know, being here on an isolated planet, I think one of the things that Jiraxis has had to face is the fact that, since if we were in space, you know, he could rely on his celebrity to, you know, like get him offers or get him places. But here he's kind of having to acclimate and act, you know, in accordance to what a normal person would. And also being in the company, at least briefly, of another actual doctor was definitely a bit of a culture shock to him.
Well, you know, it just struck me. I wonder if Jiraxis has worries about, like, we've got to get off this planet. Like, I'm losing all the subscribers are going away. Like,
Yeah,
I'm losing
honestly,
clicks.
yeah.
You know, because like they're just like, well, it looks like he doesn't provide any content anymore. You're like, no, but wait,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. What happened to Drax?
what happened to the content? But yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things too for me watching this play out has been how Jiraxis's sort of interest in influence and like selfies and things like that. I definitely have gotten the sense that, you know, the other characters are sort of like, you know, kind of maybe not Titus, but definitely Fob and Knowles, I think, sort of do a little bit of the side eye, you know, on occasion about what exactly are you doing for this. But Jiraxis is also sort of like genial enough, it feels like to me, that it's not obnoxious, right? It's not the person who's like, let me punch you in the face so I can get in front of the camera type of, you know, like it's not that kind of narcissistic self-absorption, but
he definitely has a moral center that
yeah,
lets you overlook a lot of that stuff.
Exactly. And that was something that I wondered, as you sort of were playing up, because I know the influencer thing was there, but you've really leaned into it now about, as you say, being an influencer, dealing with the loss of being an influencer, like, but without the obnoxious sort of, I'm always on camera element that, can sort of poison a lot of this sort of
Yeah.
real life influencers. So I wonder if you had any thoughts about that. And then I'll talk to you about the mechanics, and then we'll move to some other folks too.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I haven't I mean, I'm glad that we're talking about, because in many of the campaigns that I've played in and watched, I've found that some of the greatest character development and some of the greatest drama, as in like drama of the story, has come from disagreements between characters, like player characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember like a home game that I played in. One of my great friends, Jermone tends to play characters that are often like, he played a lawful evil paladin, and we've all known each other for a long time. So when we were playing Curse of Strahd, and I don't even remember what the situation was, but there's so many opportunities in Curse of Strahd for a lawful evil character to interpret something differently than the rest of the party, right? So we had one of those moments, and the role play was just so rich. Like, it was amazing because we trusted Jermone, and he was really playing that evil part, but then was also, we knew we were in for the slow burn of it, because he needed to start lawful evil, and then the idea is that over time and over these really rich roleplay scenes, he would develop. And so I've wondered, I think in some cases I do wonder if I'm playing Jaraxxus a little too genial and a little too nice. And I think something that I am interested in trying is pushing, like, I think that is something that I'm less comfortable with, is like pushing those boundaries of things that I would 100% never do in real life. And we're just talking about an influencer being oblivious or being obnoxious or unempathetic, I guess. But I do wonder if that would lead to some really interesting, like, as long as my other cast members knew what was going on, if that could lead to some good character development moments. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm reminded a little bit of our set in with Esper Genesis with Aramis, Johnny's Aramis, and Carlos's Sleepwell, who really did not get along with each other at all at first. And Aramis just thought that Sleepwell was kind of this punk kid, and Sleepwell was, sort of a big roll eyes situation towards Aramis. And of course, in real life, Carlos and Johnny know each other and are friends and all that. But that led to some really rich moments towards the end of that campaign, where it had become sort of a very gentle, supportive, thing that was a very different kind of feel, I think. Because a character like, say, Petra, everyone just sort of universally respected. So there was no, like, let's come down. I mean, there was a lot of rich role play, but not in terms of friction. But, Aramis and Sleepwell, there was definite friction that had to be sort of played out. So yeah, that's interesting. And
so
you can say,
Yeah, I am curious to hear, my other castmates' thoughts on my play of Jaraxxus so far, and your read and your character's read, and like if they're how you would feel about a shift, because I could definitely see, especially being isolated down here in a cave. I mean, I think the real trigger for him could possibly be the fact that now he's in a society that doesn't even want to see technology, and I think that may kind of like cause a huge schism in him, or could, if I wanted to go down that path. And so anyway, but yeah, and then mechanically, the last interesting thing I'll say about him having to do with mechanics is that I'm playing technically a third party, but like homebrewed class or subclass, not class, that was made by a fan of Esper Genesis and a content creator. I have to look it up. After we rotate around, we come back around, I'll mention where it came from, but it's a subclass called the Director, which I thought was like a perfect fit for Jaraxxus because all the camera stuff. The way that this subclass was written, it's more interpreting the director in the sense of like a corporate director rather than a movie director, but the mechanics could be interpreted either way. And so I'm leaning more in that like person who's taking charge of a situation vibe. And in Jiraxis's sense, it's I'm taking charge of this situation so it looks good on camera, or so that I can, get the content that I need or things like that. So that's where he gets that ability where I haven't had to use too much, but once per short rest, he can treat any d20 roll that anyone around him rolls as a 10 on the die. And so mostly I've been banking that in case one of us rolls like a critical failure on something, and then I could make it a 10 instead, or an enemy rolls a 20 on us, and then I can make it a 10. But hasn't happened too much. And then otherwise, I just have these, I have very charismatic based abilities like command, which again I haven't used too much. But again, if I go this more, I don't know, this sort of darker turn on Jiraxis for a little bit of his psyche, having a spell called command, that may be the route that he tries to take with enemies. And
you
things
tried
like
that on the Lady of Blood, right? You tried command, I think.
I did.
And the Lady of Blood was like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
and we were like, all right, bang.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
No, that's about it. Really enjoying having, I might replace it later, but the innervate ability / invocation, which lets Jiraxis have a pool of hit points, like a little tiny pool of hit points he can stack on top of himself every time.
Which has come into play several times already. Yep.
And because my abysmal armor class, which I'm very happy about actually, having a terrible armor class, because it means I'm getting hit, but I'm tanking a little bit. So, but yeah, no, that's Jiraxis. Those are my thoughts. And I think I have really been enjoying the role play. Honestly, I want to see more of all of our characters as we go along, and like the role play. I think we're in a good state where we're going to have more role play moments in this city, and fights. But yeah, so that's that.
That's good stuff. Okay. So Toya or Kat, who would like to go next?
Oh, I can go unless Kat wants to go.
Go for it, Toya.
All right, so let's find out about Nalls, who's was fascinating from the word go, the first time Nalik appeared.
So to be quite honest, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing half of the time. Because this is the first time I've ever played D&D. Like, I've worked in video games for a very long time, and so there's a whole lot of influence of D&D on like RPGs and things like that. So I have kind of cursory knowledge of things, but there's just so much stuff that goes into D&D that I'm often trying to still figure out what I should be doing at any one time. The character of Nalls, as I first had the idea for her, is that I like playing mages in games, so I knew I wanted to have something that had to do with magic. And so when I was looking at Bard, I also like music and, find music very powerful. So the ability to, or, storytelling, which, music and storytelling go together. I'm like, oh, a Bard would be pretty cool. And, my Espergenesis character was named Dr. Naomi Winterfield. And I was thinking, well, how could I kind of connect these characters? Could they have some connection at some point? And so, Dr. Naomi Winterfield is also very interested in dreams, even though she's much more science focused. So I was thinking a lot about, dreams and their connections, how Nalls could use dreams either to connect to other people or, learn about hidden arcane things. And also, like, as far as gameplay style or what Nalls does, it's kind of, I think about like, what is the boundary of the limit or the edge, and just poke it, but not go beyond it. And it's interesting because I'm looking at my D&D Beyond character sheet, and apparently, I don't remember actually choosing chaotic good, but that makes sense. Like doing things that not everybody feels necessarily safe with. For example, spending so much time trying to get Gamork on our side. And like I knew like the other characters were very concerned about, you know, trying to befriend this dire wolf, but like Nalls is the only person who can actually talk to animals. And
Yeah.
like the opportunity was there, and the way Nalls is like Nalls will see how far something can go before it's time to give up. And so it never got to that point with Gamork, because Gamork was willing to trust the group. Like, it was the question of, do we trust this direwolf? Well, from Gamork's point of view, it's, do I trust these
Yeah.
humanoid types? And I despise them. So so it's been a lot of fun, like finding where the limit is. Also, I enjoy trying to think outside of the box with Nalik as well. To the point where sometimes I remember a couple of times where Titus is like, is she okay? Like, I remember the one time where Titus is like, have you hit your head? It seems like you might have hit your head. I'm kind of
That's actually a really good imitation, because his accent
Yeah, I
is
was about to say.
did you hit her head? It's really funny.
Yeah.
So like, but I remember last session with the trees that can manifest any type of food that you're thinking of. I was like, oh, okay, well, how would Nalls use this to her advantage where it's not necessarily food? Where it turns out that the trees can also create smells. Like, oh, well, if somebody's lost, can you create the smell of where they are? That sort of thing. So it's been a lot of fun doing that. At the same time, I think in a lot of ways, the fact that I don't know what I'm doing often helps my gameplay, if
I
that
agree.
makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yep.
It's kind of like watching somebody play a fighter and they're smashing buttons like for some reason,
And then they get a
because they
combo
don't know
off
what
and
they're
you're like,
doing. They're
oh,
actually
shoot.
beating
Yeah.
yes
Yeah.
they're beating the crap out of somebody who knows
Yeah.
what they're doing. I kind of feel like that sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's fun figuring out what I can do, and like, is it the best thing that I should be doing? And also, Nalls is the type who wants to get along with everyone until she realizes that she can't. And there's a little bit of ruthlessness in her as well. One of the things that I really wanted to do getting to level 4 is make sure that Nalls could do some significant damage, because one of the things that's been kind of deflating for me is that she wasn't really lethal in a fight, and so I wanted to make sure that she could be lethal. Like, really, I wanted to be able to murder things. And so I've added some spells. Like, I have a nice AoE spell now. I've got Vicious Mockery now. Let me see what else I added here. So I've got Thunder Wave, which is the nice AoE spell. Cloud of Daggers, which is nasty. Vicious Mockery is nasty.
Well, the Cloud of Daggers
thing,
the Cloud of Daggers thing, by the way, is also like, this is the classic. You're constantly standing next to a certain lizard folk that just destroys things with daggers and all that, and then like Batman style disappears into shadows for extra cool factor. So that's got to be hard. You're just like, like, fine, I also have daggers. Look, I have clouds of daggers. Like.
But Nalik is always going to have her twist of how she deploys things. Yeah. So, I love the fact that Unseen Servant has become a thing with Uncle Bones.
Uncle Bones,
yeah.
So I do like how the system allows you to create lore with these things at the same time. So they're just not like the same spell or ability that everybody has. You can add twist to them. So that's been a lot of fun. I also now have Dissonant Whispers, because I can Dissonant Whispers, and also to detect thoughts, because I took a trait that pushed my charisma to 16, and I got detect thoughts, which should be interesting too. And the way I'm connecting that with dreams is that Nalls has connection to people's dreams, and their dreams give her the opportunity to explore memories and thoughts as well. So that's going to be fun, I
Well,
think.
I think, and also, the fact that you've had, and I give credit to, first of all, to you, but also to Zach, who's also helped advise you through a little bit of this, especially like the College of Spirits stuff. A lot of that stuff has been fascinating to me because it plays directly into this sort of strangely prophetic kind of and it's not as obvious as like, today your doom will face you. Like it's
Mhm.
not something like that. It's more subtle and abstract, but there is this sense that Knowles always kind of knows a little more vibe wise about what's going on than other people might. And that's been interesting to me to see, because even if you're not, tearing people up in combat, or haven't been to this point, as I say, because you're surrounded by like a bunch of these combat experts, like, like Fob, who does like super amount of damage. It's been fascinating to me to watch the way in which the party has, while maintaining everyone's individual identities, also been shaped by a little bit of the exploratory nature of Knowles, which I think fits with this world, because this world itself is weird, right? Like the whole this mashup, extraordinary friction I mentioned before. There in characters, there's a friction in the world building as well, about the way in which the science fiction and fantasy match up with each other, and the fact that, as Zach mentioned before, Celis, for example, is very anti-technology, and so it's not going to be as easy as just throwing a bunch of drones overhead, because that's going to have an effect. That is fascinating to me, then, to find someone in you as a player, Toya, but also with Knowles as a character that is pushing the envelope in this unusual, strange, almost, literally sometimes dreamy way, that fits the kind of world building. Because I was thinking about it, like it all is just kind of odd. Like you ran into this lady that is like, fed by the blood from these metallic tubes that have bodies in them, and then
Yeah, of
you
course.
attack them, and then she went into the throne, and then these blood goblins explode. Like it's all bizarre, and you just have to kind of roll with it. Very much similar to Monty Cook's not Planescape, the Invisible Sun universe, and and a lot of the sort of the Torment world kind of building that Monty Cook is famous for. That works if you just sort of like throw yourself into it. So I think it's been good that your expertise as a game person, but not necessarily as a D&D person, has come to the fore in a campaign like this, where everyone's kind of feeling out a little bit where everything is, and that makes it a very unique campaign to this group, I think.
Yes, and yes, Zach has been tremendously helpful in like explaining things to me. I'll look up stuff as, oh, this sounds kind of cool, and saying why that may or may not make sense for my character. It's really interesting that you describe the world as strange, because for some reason I didn't notice that. Like the world is very slipstreamy. And for people who are not familiar with that genre of speculative fiction, slipstream can be like fantastic, but it's the I forgot who coined the term. Was it Moorcock who said it's feeling very strange? And the way that I think about a good slipstream story is that it feels like the fantastic or the spiritual can break into our world at any moment. It may not necessarily be here, but it's kind of there. And so it's interesting. You just described the world as being very slipstreamy, and that's like slipstream and magical realism are my jams. Anyway, so that everything seems normal to me. But,
this is perfectly online.
yeah,
I'll see a Spider Woman show up, and
but it's interesting that you mentioned, dreams being prophetic, and Null's kind of leaning into the vibe and kind of knowing about things, because in a lot of cultures dreams are considered prophetic.
Sure.
In a lot of cultures you don't ignore dreams can tell you, something about yourself, your loved ones, complete strangers, something that's about to happen in the world at large, so you don't ignore them.
Right.
Even you break down the symbols, you interpret them, because your dreams are trying to tell you something very important. So that's very interesting, I think, because I hadn't thought of it that way. The dreaminess, or the dreaminess / slipstreaminess of the world, and how that's kind of the reality that Knowles lives in, kind of this dimension that's not necessarily the physical or the dream world, but like living kind of straddled between those two worlds, and that's the way the world itself is.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I want to say about that quickly, two things. First of all, the Final Fantasy VII is dead on for this. I mean, they use versions of what is essentially Magitech and is both fantasy and science fiction combined together. And there is a kind of almost anime-ish weirdness about Final Fantasy. But I love that world building because there's something very emotionally true about that world also, which I feel a little bit in this. The other thing is that I was just thinking about this when you were talking about Nulls being straddling worlds, because the other thing that strikes me here, and I said this about Jaraxxus with the sort of geniality thing. I don't want to overdo that, Zach, for geniality, but just being like that there's an access point to Jaraxxus, I guess. The thing I wanted to say about Nulls is I think we all have met certain people who feel like this as if they've sort of got this insight into other things a little bit beyond our world. But I've met two different versions of that person. One version of that person is the one whose eyes never quite focus on you. They never quite seem to be interested in you. Like they're nice enough, but they're always sort of like, yeah, and they're always sort of like elsewhere. And those people are not necessarily sort of super appealing. Like you could maybe admire them from a distance, but they're not the ones that you're like, I want to go hang out with this person, because you're like, I don't know what you're doing. You're like, you're hanging out with the spheres or something, but you're clearly not here with me. But the other version of this person is the one who is both straddling those worlds, but is also intensely connected with what people are going through here, right? And see what they interpret from the world as being part and parcel of what's going on here. So I thought about that with Gamork. Like, Gamork for you is not, oh, I'm going to do this because, at least I'm guessing, tell me if I'm wrong, because this fulfills some prophecy and then the world will happen and then Gamork will probably be killed, but whatever, because it's all just like, a screw that I have to put in a certain hole and make sure that it's all tight. And, it's not mechanical in that way. I think you genuinely were interested in Gamork and had this sort of access point to Gamork. So it's that other version of the person that you're like, this person has this kind of old soul wisdom about them without seeming as if they're sort of lost to the present day and therefore not particularly fun to be around. You know what I mean? Like, this is a person who's
100%.
You're genuinely interested in the other characters, it seems to me, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I was looking at like my Nulls' description on D&D Beyond, and like one of the personality trait I chose was, there's nothing I like more than a good mystery. And then like flaws, most people scream and run when they see a demon. I stop and take notes on its anatomy, and that's kind of like the actual a being version of that is talking to Gamork, because me as the player, I was fascinated by Gamork, right? And as a character, Nulls would be fascinated with Gamork, but also at the same time of wanting like an ally, being generally concerned about what was done to him and his pack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so I'm concerned about you, but also we should team up because we're concerned about the world. You may not be, but you don't realize that what's going on in the world is also affecting you.
Yeah.
And, I think Gamork is still very much about Gamork, but we've seen Gamork be selfless and help others too. So that is within him. And that's been a really cool twist actually to see on that character. We weren't necessarily talking about how Gamork has developed as a character, but that's been a really nice twist.
He's been a blast to play because the four of you have played off of him and have sort of been like, I fully expected that you could very well have all been like, okay, that's enough of this modified direwolf. But the fact that you've all sort of wanted to sort of see where this goes means that I'm like, I mean, listen, I am more than happy to sort of trace out that storytelling. So sorry.
Yeah, Gamork is amazing and like one of my favorite things about this campaign, to be honest. It's fun to interact with him and to watch him work in battle and that sort of thing. But yeah, to go back to your question, yes, Nulls is going to be interested in beings. I won't say people because it goes beyond people. She's interested in beings. She's interested in seeing how they tick and what makes them work, but she's genuinely also concerned about their well-being as well.
Yeah, it's good. It's really cool stuff. Anything mechanical you want to highlight about Nalik, and about any of the cool stuff? I was thinking again about like the way you interpret like the lore stuff and how you sort of like render that with stories that you tell and that sort of thing.
Oh, I think just, just generally I've wanted to be stabbier and more brutal. And I'm able to do that now. I haven't got like lore for everything yet.
Mhm.
Like, I haven't completely worked out like the Uncle Bones story, but I would like to do that. And I think the more that I'm able to use these new spells that I've got, I'll be able to kind of feel out like lore from them, and put like a null spin on them.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
No, that's cool stuff. I'm really glad that you chose to play a bard. Separate note, by the way, chat. Anyone who watched my Tyranny of Dragons campaign on here, or who has expertise in D&D, will know that people who vaguely know D&D make fun of bards. People who really know D&D are like, oh, wait till bards get to be higher level.
Oh yeah.
High level bards are unbelievably powerful for multiple reasons, because they are enormously charismatic, because they are very influential, and mechanically what they do can have huge influence points. The guy Don Cairo, who played the bard in the Tyranny of Dragons campaign, in the last couple of battles was arguably the most valuable character in the entire thing, because he set up this like phantom fortress that like confused a bunch of people and all this like just wild stuff that was really, really cool. And that was way beyond the just sort of like, I'm just going to sit back here and play a lute and laugh a lot. Like it's like way, way more involved than that. Exactly. Dragonspear bards are cool. So anyway,
yeah, I'm beginning to see the vision of how nasty they can be.
Oh God, yeah. Like then they get
looking
higher.
forward to more of that.
Even like even when you get into stuff like Dissonant Whispers, no joke. Like well role played Dissonant Whispers are creepy as hell. Oh, it's very, very cool. So I'm
just at a lower level, just at a lower level with like Unseen Servant, like all the things that one could do, and like I haven't I've had some opportunities, but like being able to lead for Uncle Bones to lead the lost ghost boy away, like we were talking in chat, we were saying we don't know how badly that could have gone, but we have a feeling that could have been really, really awful. So that was that moment. I'm looking for more of that sort of thing, and I know I have not scratched the surface.
Yeah, well, and in Celis, you may get the opportunity as well, just here to be able to do some of that. Very, very cool. I'm very, very happy with how that character is developed. All right, well, let us move on to talk a little bit about our lizard folk Fob. And yeah, I want to ask Kat about what drew you. So you had been playing, obviously, a not super high dexterity, as we say, to be fair, Petra, and you want to do something different. But also, I mean, like Fob, I don't know what the rest of you think, just briefly from the perspective of the game master here running this, watching Fob like be an absolute killing machine, but then also sort of not just disappear in the shadows like I'm Batman, but also always observing and watching and sort of looking for the moments, I think is very neat. There's like a very Still Waters vibe for me running deep with Fob. And so I find that very interesting. So you tell me, Kat, like what was your thought and how do you feel Fob is sort of built up as you've played them?
Well, I figure Fob is just sort of silently competent in that way where it would be easy for some types to underestimate Fob, but Fob is actually insightful, or what is it? Inquisitive is the archetype, and then I added with the stat increase to dexterity and strength, and Fob is genuinely pretty buff, as in a 19, I believe.
That is true. I'm looking for the picture to put up. I just came across Eddie Lizard Someone did a version of a lizard folk rogue whose name was Eddie Lizard. I'm sorry. That just sort of came out of nowhere and I found funny. Never mind. Please
Here-
continue.
Eddie
That's
Here
Lizard.
for chat is
great.
Clark
Oh, Clark.
sleeping in my lap, and Bruce is over on the other side of the desk. Anyway, you know, I like characters who don't say a lot, because when they say something, then the dialogue is very effective. And I think that's, you know, a kind of fun archetype to play. And it's always fun to play a character with just a lot of knives hidden about them, because, you know, who knows when that's always going to come in handy.
That's gonna be it's gonna be a big part of it. Yeah. Have you ever seen
Yeah.
you ever seen the movie Desperado, Kat?
I don't know if I have or not.
It's
Uh-huh.
a
Who's
it's a
in it?
very fun. I mean, it's silly action movie, but Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek and
Oh, then I have. Yes, I think I know that one.
yeah, the
Yes.
sequel to the Three Mariachi. And
Yes.
so there's a sequence where the guy who everyone is going to know immediately in chat, and I never remember, but he's super famous. Trejo, like tattoos all over the
Oh,
place, a badass.
Danny
He's an
Trejo.
actor.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo plays
Mm.
this knife wielding dude who is brought into the town to like clean stuff up, and they play him like with this music in the background. Don't look back, don't look back. It is the
Yeah.
coolest thing. No guns. He's just like, and knives from everywhere. And there's an image like Fob is not going to be like out front style wise like that, but the knife thing is so deadly because you've used so many of them with these things that it just sort of reminded me a little bit of that moment. So talk to me more about how has Fob, Kat, developed in a different way at all as time has gone on as you would have expected? Like, are there, because of the things that happen to the game or the characters, have things shifted or altered with that in how you imagine Fob playing out, or not?
Well, I think it's been interesting for Fob running into the Esper Genesis characters has been very interesting, and it's kind of clear that their magic is very different than most of the magic Fob has run into before. I really like, kind of looping back to what you were saying about Dr. Zeraxis, which I think I'm mispronouncing, but just I kind of like the idea that there is a dark side that comes out when he's just like, where are all my followers? You know, the follower count is dropping daily, and I'm on this miserable planet where there's not even freaking hot water most of the time, you know, and I think that would be an interesting turn. I mean, and I think that's one of the fun things about this campaign is sort of a collision between the D&D and the Esper Genesis. Sorry, I've got kittens crawling all over the desk.
I understand. I know the feeling. So yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you have a vision mechanically for, as Fob develops, what sort of emphasis? Now, we've talked about the Inquisitive, and actually let's talk briefly about that before I ask that other question I was going to ask, because this is from Xanathar's. This is not from the sort of bog standard player's handbook. So talk about what the Inquisitive rogue is for folks.
Well, and until we asked that, I had that. Oh, here we go. Fob's character. It gives Fob one thing. Basically, Fob has an eye for detail. Can use a bonus action to make perception checks to spot hidden stuff or make an investigation check, and has insightful fighting, which means that Fob can look at look at a foe and get an advantage basically against them.
Which means sneak
and
attack, which means damage, is what that
Yes.
means. You know, getting that advantage.
And I like rogues. I had not realized until Zach was talking that the characters that I picked were both the specialist is essentially the Esper Genesis rogue, which I didn't realize until I was like I realized that they both got cunning dash or whatever it was early on. It's like, oh shit, this is familiar.
Yeah. And the rogue, what I like about it too is that that particular rogue, because of the inquisitive, the ear for deceit, the eye for detail, that sense of observation, that Fob is always watching and waiting, really ties in,
Well,
right?
and the other thing I like is that because Fob is lizard folk, there is that hungry jaws action, which just means like every once in a while, Fob just the jaw unhinges and just goes rah
Yeah.
on somebody, and I think that's kind of hysterical. But yeah,
Speaking of that, I have a question, because something about how you, Kat, said that a character that doesn't speak a lot, when they do speak, it's more meaningful. And of course, what was evoked to me there is that you are an author, by trade. And so, like, of course, you've probably written characters that are like that, and you just like understand that as a writer. And so I'm curious, as someone who is a DM, that I often have to embody characters that aren't human, and not only not human, but like not an elf, which is, oh, just a human but pointy ears and they live long.
yeah.
But I'm curious to hear like how you, I think you've already done a bit of this, but like how you interpret being a lizard folk or a lizard person, and how you've already thought about that, and how you think that might kind of influence.
I really like lizards, as my friends know. I like lizards and snakes and spiders and all the creepy crawly stuff. And lizards stay very still. Lizards blend in to their surroundings, and I think Fob is definitely socially that sort of person who just kind of fades. I always love, there's that Homer Simpson gif of him disappearing into the head.
Yeah, the bush.
And then that's just, to me, that's Fob. Just every once in a while just goes whoop and it's gone. And maybe it is camouflage. Maybe there is a little bit of chameleon stuff action going on there. But yeah, I like Fob. I try to make each D&D character fairly distinct, and I have plenty to play with Fob, I think, still.
And you think you have a vision, I assume, of where you imagine Fob, if all goes well, ending up at the end of this whole thing. Like you have a vision for where Fob might end up. Yeah. Because I'm curious to see that play out too.
It's the head of a space pirate ship is where Fob's headed.
Called the scimitar, or called the knife, right? Like called the knife's edge, or something. Yeah,
the space blade,
the sharpest blade.
That's
it. But it's very cool, and I'm actually excited to see that play out also. I guess one of the things we should do too before we, maybe we can ask a couple questions from chat, and then we could start winding down. But I'm curious what all three of you think about our fourth and missing member today, but the character of Titus, and what the impression has been of this. I've got to get Johnny a better puppet, but the version of Titus, and the fact that everyone immediately knew the accent and all that, and the sort of tenor of the voice. I'm curious what you've all thought about playing with this Zek engineer, and the engineer part is, fairly, there's a healing component to it. It basically is the Esper Genesis version of a healer to some degree, but or an art, also with elements of the D&D artificer in there. But in terms of the race of the Zek, that, it seems to me, is interesting, because that sort of is completely different from most people's experience in games or anything else. I'm just curious what you all feel about Titus to this point.
I'm a big fan of the way Titus speaks.
Yes.
But
so good. So good.
I'm not
really sure what to do here, but
yeah.
look,
Oh my God.
Everything is you kind of have to to be very careful and measured about everything you do, because I've been alive hundreds of years, and I've seen these things with
Yes.
like my litter mates. And anyway,
But can I just say for a second though, you're 100% right about that. But the fact that he said as a part of that, like he was talking to, and I believe he was talking to Elu's mother about this, Lady Whisperwind, about the loss of this person, and you know, in his halting way, this thing about like, and you know, I've lost lots, you know, with the foundlings, and you're like, I think you're actually getting to a really moving moment, right? Like you have to kind of trace through it, but you're like, this thing he's been around for a long time, and he's lost all these people that you can really, you could feel it in him, but it's just rendered in this sort of, it's not a silly thing, but it just feels like this kind of, oh my God, really? He's not just a goofball and like oh, funny little Titus. Like he really is able to express loss. Anyway, that just struck me last time.
What I really appreciate about the character is that he does not lord his wisdom over anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he has an opinion, and it can be a very strong one. And you can tell that there are times that he really disagrees with something, you know, someone, or, you know, what the group wants to do. But he allows people to come to their own conclusion about things. He's not saying like, listen here, I know how this is going to go down, and blah 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 blah, and not throwing his considerable not weight around. But you know, like, he's very endearing also, because in a way there's a childlikeness about him, and I'm not talking about the puppet, which I think is awesome, by the way.
I just want him to have like a high level version of that puppet. That's all.
Not
two sheets of paper. I don't know.
Yeah.
There is a childlikeness about him, and it's interesting because I have known men who are like in their 70s and 80s who have a childlikeness about them as well, that kind of comes out of nowhere, where they can still have wonder, they can still be surprised by things and enjoy them while they know everything. So
yeah, no, that's cool. It's been interesting to see that develop, and also in the last fight that you were not here for, Kat, but during the month you were away, you know, there were some, like, everyone contributed a lot, but there was some serious stuff going down with some of the things that he used, that Titus used, in terms of stuff he was able to bring to bear in a combat sense. So there was that. Also, one of the most memorable moments for me, two of them. One of them is Titus trying to like connect with Gamork, right, even though he doesn't speak the language. So being like, I'm gonna like, and all of that role play has been very cool. The other moment was he was the first one, you may remember, who, when Darmuth was running, the wizard that you found, who was pursued by those strikers, who was like trying to shoot him down, like he ended up at some point like facing down one of those strikers. He was just like, and he wasn't being like, oh, I'm a hero, and he was still doing this. This is really bad, but he's standing there, and this thing is like, how big is a Zek? Like, 3 feet. This thing is like towering over him. So
the
there's
Zek
something...
are like the halflings of space.
Yeah,
Genesis.
Yeah, but like there's some kind of courage and wisdom that I have appreciated seeing kind of tied in. And again, very bizarre, like Zek, and then we've talked about the sort of strangeness of Null's approach to dreams and prophecy, Fob with the vanishing into the shadows and observing and watching everything all the time, and then occasionally Jawbite, when not shooting with knives, and then with Jaraxxus, this influencer who maybe seems more genial on the surface, but is sort of struggling below or whatever. Very interesting mix, I think, of characters that really fits in a world like this. And again, as I say, this wouldn't necessarily work in a sort of traditional bog standard D&D campaign, but if you're going to play a game like this, you kind of have to embrace the not the strange for the sake of being strange, but just the mashup, as we've all said, the crash of these two, fantasy and science fiction, and just embrace what that is. And I agree with Toya that I like Slipstream a lot also, when it can play off of those and you just have this very fertile ground for storytelling and character development and stuff like that. So all right. So any other things that any of the folks want to say about their characters or other characters? And while I'm doing that, I'll ask chat if you have any questions you wanted to throw at any of the players about their characters. Now is the time to ask. Yeah, and then we'll wrap up a little bit of this. I probably will stream a little bit longer, but I'll do something else that's not TTRPG related. So, but yeah, so do any of the players have any thoughts about campaign stuff or their other characters or any of those things? And if not, that's fine. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I'm excited to see how the characters develop and change. I think something that that may help, that I might start leaning into, especially given where our characters are at this point in the campaign, is adding a bit more of that character to character drama. Because generally, I think even in the last campaign between Sleepwell and Aramis, there was always a tension there. But then in combat, in missions and stuff like that, other than a few like moral dilemmas that we had, it always just served to develop the characters even more. I mean, I think I remember near the end, when we never really got to see this out, but Aramis did something taboo to the Madakai, or no, it was the fact that like in a previous life that wasn't his own, he had like slaughtered some Madakai people, right? And so he in his current life at the time felt responsible for that. And I remember that whole moral argument between himself and Sleepwell was that Sleepwell and the rest of us honestly were like, you're not that. I mean, sure, maybe do something, but you shouldn't have to die for that. And maybe there could be something else that could be done. So just, I don't know, I think moral disagreements and quandaries and things like that could come up. I'd be interested to see. And us getting more powerful and leveling up more.
Yeah, leveling up more often.
Yeah, I'll take that anytime.
Yeah. And Sleepwell, by the way, on that moment was very angry on Aramis's behalf, which was a real shift, I think. Just kind of like, the kind of person you are now, sort of thing. And it wasn't quite fitting with where Aramis was morally. But yeah, I mean, none of this is stuff that obviously needs to be forced. But I think where it comes out organically, where there is that sort of different disagreement, that can be very powerful. Others, any other thoughts that people have? And again, chat, if you have questions, feel free. If not, it's okay. But definitely throw some our way if you wish.
I'm intrigued by the thought that we have a honk emote.
Yeah, we have now. Yes, there's been a Arcanus bot has had a honk thing, which has been added to it to bring people forward. Well, I am very, very excited about where the campaign is going, and I'm very excited that we're now in Celis. I think this is going to be a very role play oriented section here, and we've had a decent amount of time to do some elements of that. So completely non-serious. What would each character think about pineapple on pizza and about raisins and cinnamon buns? Now, that second question is a very serious, theoretically, game. If you answer that improperly, there may be serious, dire consequences in game if you get the raisins and cinnamon buns question wrong. So just make sure that we're clear about that.
I love pineapple on pizza. I don't care what people say.
That's fine. I'm all about that. Sure.
I've never heard about raisins in cinnamon buns.
Good.
So that's a new one to me.
That's good.
Thanks for testing the waters there for us, Toya.
I mean, fascinating. I'll make a note of that.
I've also never entreated much into raisins and cinnamon buns. Or raisins on pizza. But pineapples on pizza, I'm one of those people. Oh, well, we're supposed to answer as our characters. Jaraxxus is... I think Jaraxxus likes pineapple on pizza, but says that he doesn't like it so that it creates more drama and therefore more attraction to his social media platform.
Well, what would happen is Jaraxxus would have a video of him trying pineapple on pizza.
Oh, there we
Yeah.
go.
Even
Mhm.
though he already knows what it tastes like.
How does
He'd be
anyone
like
eat
the
this?
kombucha
Right,
girl.
right,
Yeah, it's a
He'd
yeah.
be totally the
reaction.
kombucha girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
hmm
mhm.
Wait. What do you mean totally the kombucha girl? As in, like, you think that wasn't her first time trying kombucha?
Oh no! I mean the reaction. He would
Oh, okay, yeah,
he
that makes
would
sense.
create a meme
100%.
out of his
Yes.
trying the pineapple on pizza.
Raisins and cinnamon buns. I'd have to try it. I'm not opposed, but it sounds like someone here
I'm
at this
not
table
either.
has some raisin and cinnamon buns trauma that they're looking to maybe speak on.
If you believed in the raisins, if you believed in them as a legitimate food, you wouldn't need to dump them hidden like turds into the food that you then sneak onto an unsuspecting populace, which is why those of us who have
Oh
ever
my
gotten a chocolate
God.
chip cookie and found, oh no, it's an oatmeal raisin cookie, why do you have to hide your food if it's so good? That's all I have to say.
Are raisins really hidden in oatmeal cookies?
No.
They look like well, they can be. How many times people like, can I get a chocolate chip cookie? Sure. They pick it up and you're like, wait a minute, is that oatmeal? Is that raisin? Oh yeah, sorry. You know, I don't know.
Mhm.
Aged grapes, it didn't make the cut. All right.
I thought
That's all
you
I gotta
were
say.
talking about something where like people put raisins in their potato salad, and that's why they don't get invited to the picnic.
There's that too,
That's what I
though,
thought you were talking
right?
about.
Like, there's that too. I mean, there's also that. I just feel like raisins get hidden a lot for something that everyone's like, oh, they're great, you know, and then we conceal them in buns. Anyway, but pineapple and pizza, that's fine. I get to answer as the DM in this case as a GM, so that's how that works. I wonder how Titus would feel about either of those things. I mean, probably Titus like picks any of these things.
You
and
have
thinks
to
it's fine,
answer
right?
as Titus. You must
I
answer.
I mean,
as Titus.
I would assume I like pineapple on pizza to the extent that, like, yeah, you know, I've had a lot of it, and it's good. A lot of planets, pineapples, very important. It really got to be careful with who you say pineapple to. Very offensive to some people.
but good for the ecosystem.
Good for the ecosystem. Yes. So there's your very non-serious answer, Shadow, to that type of stuff.
That's funny.
I'm just very very excited about this world, though. As I say, there's a lot to it, and beyond Celis, of course. I mean, again, what I love is, I mean, Celis is not a side quest area. Let's be clear. What you learn here will also help further things overall. But there is the sense that you're like, and when we deal with this, we still have to figure out what the hell is going on in Camria, and then like Jaraxxus and Titus are like,
Mhm.
what the hell's going on with the beacon? How do we, all that? How do we get sources of Sorium? Like, all of that
Yep.
stuff is sort of still simmering in the background, which is great because it gives us lots of things to play off of. So it's gonna be good stuff. All right, well then I'm going to. I think I'm glad we had a chance to do this. I'm going to bid our
Yeah.
players a fond farewell then, and I guess I'll just ask. Zach, where is anything you want to highlight about where folks will see you next before we have you back as Dr. Jaraxxus later this month?
Oh, just me? Great. Sure, I'll plug myself for the rest of the time. Yeah. I'm just kidding. No, everyone will find me here for the next session of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. Almost said Esper Genesis.
Esper from the Mysterious Peaks, yeah.
Esper from the Mysterious Peaks. And also, of course, again, for next Tuesday's Our Vocalist Christmas special. Super excited for that. That's always a lot of fun. Biggest one we're ever going to have. So, tune in to a short reading of the Christmas Carol. Not the 5-hour long version, although that's been done before.
That's true. This one is the one Dickens himself did for readings, which was abridged by himself. So
yes. And so looking forward to that. Also on my own Twitch channel and other contents, I'm playing through Divinity Original Sin 1 with my friend Maddie every Thursday. So you'll see me there. And otherwise, other things that you'll hear about in the new year. But yeah, that's me.
that is true. Can confirm.
Mhm.
Moving right over to Kat. Kat, it's lovely to have you back. I'm glad that you're back stateside. Again, anything you want to particularly highlight about books, information, Rambo Academy, things like that before we see you with this campaign?
Jen Brozek, who I think some members of this channel also know, and I have a book out this month, The Reinvented Detective, which is an anthology of science fictional stories of detectives and crimes and punishment, and was a ton of fun. So if you like short stories, pick that up. And otherwise, next weekend I am teaching. It's the last round of classes for the academy for this year. So you can find details there in the chat link. And otherwise, I am taking December to write and play with my lovely new kittens.
All good reasons, all good things. That's awesome. And we will have you back here for next session later this month. And Johnny, of course, will be rejoining us. I'm going to end with a person who's with us, so I'll end with Toy in a second. But Johnny, hopefully, we'll have back with us very soon. Should be back in our next session. So you should check out everything involving Video Store Cowboy. I believe he's going to be making a return to streaming soon, as I recall him mentioning. So you should be on the lookout for that. He is Video Store Cowboy on Twitch. Toya, last but certainly not least, anything you want to highlight about where folks will see you or your work or things like that before you're back with us?
Well, I'm pretty quiet on the internets by design. I will just say that, I've got several books out for people who are interested in writing and doing narrative design for video games. One of them just got a second edition. That is the Game Narrative Toolbox, which I co-wrote with Anne LeMay, Jennifer Brandis Hepler, and Tobias Hosner. And so if you've ever wanted to get into games, the whole design of that book is you will have a portfolio by the time you are done with it. I also have a book on writing and designing visual novels. And I also have one about being a freelance writer in video games. So if you are interested in any of those things, those books are available online wherever you purchase books.
We need to make sure that we get a link that we can just throw up immediately so that everyone can buy your stuff all the time, Toya. I need to make sure that I do that.
I am not opposed to that.
It was great to have all three of you folks here. Chat, can we get some love for them? I'm still going to be streaming, but can we get some love for the amazing members of Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks? And Toya, Kat, and Zach. I will see Zach soon next week, but Toya and Kat, I will see you folks later this month for an actual play session of Expedition.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Sounds good.
For now,
go visit your Starfield
folks.
parents.
I gotta go find out what's going on with Mom and Dad. Bye for now. All.
Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Lovely. Okay, so so we decided we were going to do something a little bit different since we were still waiting on some of the folks to get here, and we had some, as I say, some scheduling things to work out. And so we decided we would do this, and I think it was nice. We had a chance to do a little bit of a mid-section or mid-campaign check-in, which is something we did not have the chance to do really with Esper Genesis, I don't think. One of the nice things about campaign is when you can take a moment, especially towards the end of the year, to kind of take a breath and sort of see where things are at. We did that a little bit in the Curse of Strahd campaign when we did the When Alec Met Weller, which was sort of like a prequel thing almost. And I loved those. They were so much fun to be able to do. It was a lot of fun to actually see that play out. And I know that Triffid, who has been editing all of this and doing a lot of the podcast notes and so forth for Curse of Strahd, I'm pretty sure you did one of those too, Triffid. If I'm not mistaken, you like had a chance to listen and then edit those. And those are like super fun because you kind of get a sense of the campaign from a different perspective. And Expedition is, because of its nature, an intense kind of campaign. It's not intense in the sort of Strahd sort of way, but it's intense in terms of it is this sort of deliberate mashup, and it's got that Final Fantasy-ish, deliberately Final Fantasy-ish or Phantasy Star-ish type of feel, which creates this kind of depth and richness to it that I think is a lot of fun. So it's been awesome doing this, and I'm thankful to Alligator Alley for sponsoring us in this as well, and we will have more Expedition coming up later this month. So now what we're going to do, chat, is because we are ending earlier than I planned, is I'm going to fire up a little bit of Starfield. I had a great time with this yesterday. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to make a couple of adjustments here So give me just 1 second. I'm going to stop recording for just a moment, and then I'm going to restart. For those of you who are here for Espergenesis, for Espergenesis, I did it too. For Expedition for the Mysterious Peaks, thank you. And thank you to Alligator Alley for sponsoring us, and we will be back with you all soon. So make sure you come back for the next session for that. Bye for now.